Welcome back. Welcome back to Living in Mexico. I'm Ana Maria Salazar. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank all of you who've been joining us throughout the years. It's just been an honor to share with you information, news, analysis about what's going on in Mexico, um, both in English and in Spanish. And we continue to broadcast this show on the weekends on Imagen Radio, 7 to 8 in the morning, both Saturday and Sunday. So don't forget to join us. And we're also podcasting the interviews because we've got great interviews, and especially as we're heading towards the end of the year, we try to present or share with you interviews that not only reflect the issues that were being discussed, but how we start preparing or trying to anticipate what's going to happen next year in 2026. But there is an issue that came up this week that is definitely going to affect 2026, and it's the negotiation, the reevaluation, the review of the USMCA. This week, President Claudia Sheinbaum made a series of statements during her morning press conference, in which she basically said that the negotiations with the United States and Canada are leaning to a review of the USMCA and not a renegotiation. And the difference is a big deal. It's according to President Claudia Sheinbaum, the 2026 process will be a technical review meant to evaluate how the agreement has functioned since 2020. It does not imply reopening the entire treaty, unlike the full renegotiation of the USMCA, which took place in 2020, which basically means you have to take it to your Congresses to be either ratified or approved. And that could be a problem in the United States, potentially even in Mexico. And this review will be focusing on specific issues, mainly those that the United States and Canada are requesting to examine. So this is going to be a review according to the president. Now, some of the points that have been highlighted in the last couple of days that could be a problem particularly for the United States. It has to do with the United States electricity and energy policy. It has to do with this company that's called the Calica case, which is Vulcan Materials, which there hasn't been an agreement in Quintana Roo. And how does this, it's going to affect the framework of the USMCA and other non-tariff barriers, which could mean, regulation, permit, certifications, administrative process that makes it difficult for foreign companies to invest in Mexico. According to the president, there are 54 of these points or differences have been resolved, and in some cases, according to the president, the U.S. government understood that Mexico could not go any further. So, what does this mean? Joining us today, once again, is Jorge Molina. He is a trade and policy and public policy consultant. Jorge, welcome to the show again. The president is very optimistic for 2026. She seems to think that it's only going to be a review and not opinion. Welcome to the show.
Ana Maria, how are you? Yes, I agree with you that President Sheinbaum seems to be quite optimistic, particularly after what USTR Jameson Greer said earlier this week on Monday and Tuesday when he had closed door meetings with both the Senate Finance and the House Ways and Means committees, which are the two committees responsible for the USMCA. He met with both of them in order to provide the report after the public consultation process that the USTR started back in September the 15th. And then once when the 3-day hearing took place earlier this month in December, when about 175 organizations from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico participated, and basically everyone spoke in favor of keeping the agreement, except NGOs and workers' union in all
Mm-hmm.
three countries, saying that there was a need for further or the need for strengthening all environmental, labor, and human rights clauses. But the private sector spoke very, very highly in terms of keeping the
Mm-hmm.
agreement. Now, having said that, what the USTR, what Ambassador Greer said to both committees was that yes, the private sector is in favor, but the Trump administration has a number of concerns since Mexico and Canada have, and he actually went uh, on a detailed basis
Mm-hmm.
in each case on the issues that he has or that he considers that have not been resolved so far. In the case of, for example, in the case of Canada, it was access to Canadian banks into, I'm sorry, access to US banks into Canadian territory,
Mm-hmm.
the access of critical minerals for the US, and also special access of Canadian oil, to name only three of them.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of Mexico, he talked about the energy reform. He talked about the 50 some non tariff barriers which were presented to President Sheinbaum when when the Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with her earlier this year, and also he talked about the need. What you said, he said that the issue with Calica had not been resolved. This is because Calica is owned by a company in Alabama that produces construction materials. It's called
Mm-hmm.
Vulcan Materials.
Correct.
And the major issue here is that Calica owns the only deep water harbor in the Yucatan Peninsula.
Oh.
That raises a number of strategic concerns for the US, since there is major concern that the Mexican government would allow Chinese ships to dock in, with all of these implications
Mm-hmm.
or strategical implications and security implications, not only for Mexico but for the whole hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the major reason about the Calica issue that the U.S. considers that has not been resolved.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the López Obrador administration offered a financial settlement, which was rather low, and the company did not accept it, and
Mm-hmm.
there has not been much movement since. Now, there is a large group of legislators in both chambers who are following this particular issue. And now, whether this is a review or a renegotiation, you can call it whatever you think it's better. But one thing is for sure, this is not going to be a quick and easy process,
Mm-hmm.
since what Ambassador Greer said, okay, the US and Canada want the agreement, and the private sector wants to continue with the agreement. Fine. How much do you want it? So
Wow.
that's going to be basically an issue of what
Mm-hmm.
if Mexico and Canada are willing to pay the political cost of this negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
This may not be an easy and fast process. Number one, because with changes in the judicial system in Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
with the elimination of the regulatory agencies in Mexico, and with a number of the other policy changes implemented by the López Obrador administration, there's going to be a need to review at least at least 8 key chapters on telecommunications, on energy, the dispute settlement mechanism, the investment chapter, and so on and so forth. So that's one. Number two, the United States wants to include at least a couple of new chapters. One on critical materials that both
Mm-hmm.
Mexico and Canada have, and another one on artificial intelligence. You probably are aware that Trump has been very active in terms of preventing states to legislate on this issue, and
Mhm.
he wants legislation to be only at the federal level.
Well, he
Now,
doesn't, and it appears that he doesn't want regulations. I mean, he really is
bottom line,
pushing for deregulating artificial intelligence, which is a quantitative change of of U.S. policy during the prior administration, Joe Biden's.
yes,
Eh,
yes, and actually, here the issue is that since so much money has been attracted into artificial intelligence projects,
Right.
therefore, the U.S. wants to capitalize on this. I
Hmm.
mean, if you think about, for example, well, what happens if a company decides to establish itself someplace? Well, the first thing that it's going to be important is that, okay, is that company going to have access to a sufficient electricity flow?
Electricity, yeah.
uh,
Water.
are they going to be able to get access to water? Are they going to
Hmm.
have access to all of the different inputs that they need? This is not going to be so much human capital, but rather it's electricity, it's water, and also the quantity and the quality of the supply.
Hmm.
So that's going to be one thing.
Hmm.
And in this case, the U.S. seems to be willing to do a number of things in order to attract those because all of these are literally billion plus investment
Projects,
in
yeah.
terms of the money that
Hmm.
it's involved.
Hmm.
And the other thing here as well is that since the US wants to attract or to keep a larger percentage of the auto industry, and there's this need or this intention to increase rules of origin in order to keep China not only out of Mexico, but out of the whole Western Hemisphere,
Hmm.
that's going to be a process that is going to include a whole lot of pushing and shoving. So, in that sense, I would not think that this is going to be a quick and easy process. On the contrary, this is going to be a long, very difficult process because it's also going to redefine the commercial relationship, not
Hmm.
only of the US with its two closest neighbors, but also the commercial relationship of Canada and Mexico with the US, with China, and with its main trading partners.
And the other issue that economists or those who are participating in these negotiations is there the fact that there is midterm elections in the United States is going to be important because Donald Trump has been using trade policy as a way to promote a to promote his policies, around the world, but also to promote this idea of bringing back companies and industrialize the United States again. So I don't know. The USMCA, on the contrary, doesn't really push that. It looks for, kind of an integration of North America, and you have these investments in countries where it's most efficient or it's the cheapest in order to produce more money for these companies and facilitate trade. So I don't know how this is going to work out because clearly there's a sense that at least politically, Donald Trump is against trade. But he wants more tariffs. So I don't know. I think we have to be paying attention to all those legislators, the way you do it, the senators who are going to be influencing or trying to pressure Donald Trump in certain areas, even though most companies, I think, believe that the USMCA is good for the United States.
The congressional politics are going to be, this
Fascinating.
time, I think that trade is going to be playing in both ways in favor and against congressional politics.
Right.
Because on the one side, the rules that will define the negotiation itself uh, are going to be voted and decided by the current legislation.
Hmm.
In other words, by just about everyone who's in office now, they are going to be the ones deciding whether it's going to be through a trade promotion authority or whether they are going to allow Trump to go in a different path this time and try to negotiate it without the intervention at the very beginning of Congress, which
Mm-hmm.
could be a first, but it's not impossible. That's one. Now, on the other side, Congress is going to change in 2026,
Mm-hmm.
probably more than people can think. Number
Mm-hmm.
one, of the 435 representatives, about 50 of them, about a little bit over 10%, is not coming back,
Mm-hmm.
either because they are retiring or because they started somehow a feud with Trump, like the representative from Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who
Green. Yeah.
was a huge, huge MAGA supporter, and now
Mm-hmm.
because of the Epstein files case,
Mm-hmm.
she became an enemy of Trump. So she decided to quit Congress in 2026. That's going to be one of several seats that are going to be vacated, and
Mm-hmm.
some of them will be filled through a special election. Others, it's expected that they will be left vacant until 2026, until
Mm-hmm.
November, when the normal election takes place. The other thing is that of the 33 or 34 senators who are also up for re-election, most of them are Republicans,
Mm-hmm.
23 of them.
Wow.
23 of the 34 are Republicans. So that means that the next legislature, the
Mm-hmm.
120th, that will start in January of 2027, that will be the one who's going to vote to
Mm-hmm.
ratify the new USMCA or
Mm-hmm.
CUSMA or TEMEC, whatever you want
Mm-hmm.
to call it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But that that new legislature is the one that in no way, shape, or form Trump can think or consider that it's going to be
Friendly.
dominated by the
Right.
Republicans.
Right.
And just to make my point, why is Trump so eager in trying to gerrymander Texas, Indiana,
Right.
and so many
Right.
other states?
Because
Because
they're going to lose. The
yes, I
Republicans are
mean,
going to lose.
so he's trying to maximize in any
Well,
way that he can the number of Republican seats that he can keep, because
well,
he knows that with his current economic policies, he's not going to do it.
well, and that explains why, at least in terms of the way they're communicating what is happening, why they are seeking for the USMCA being reviewed and not renegotiated, because if it's renegotiated, then it has to go through the US Senate. And I think that's what they're trying. I think it's going to be the US government that's going to try to avoid a renegotiation. They're going to try to convince both the US legislators that this was a review. Um,
But I'm going to say this, that if I am a Democrat, I may not believe it.
exactly.
And a proof of that is that uh, the meetings of Ambassador Greer this week
Mm-hmm.
with Finance and Ways and Means, the meetings were because originally he was going to send a written report to Congress
Mm,
as it was expected. But
mm-hmm.
he said that he was not obligated to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to fulfill the obligation that he had that meeting or those
Mm-hmm.
meetings in order to inform them. But both the ranking members of Senate and Ways and Means,
Mm-hmm.
Senator Wyden and Richard Neal, and a
Mm-hmm.
number of other Democrats in finance like
Mm-hmm.
Senator Warren, Tina Smith, Ben Ray Lujan,
Mm-hmm.
they sent letters to Greer asking him for the written report by December the 30th so that they can understand where
Where
is
it is.
the USTR coming
Mm-hmm.
from and why is it that they are thinking that this is going to be a negotiation like the one that they are talking about. So they are
Mhm.
not taking they are not getting all of these issues. They want to
Mhm.
have the written document because I mean, this is actually the document is going to be sent to the White House. So they say, why can't we have a copy of that?
Right. Well, it's that's fascinating. So it kind of I'm kind of reaching a conclusion. The statements made by President Claudia Sheinbaum may be a little bit too optimistic that it's going to be a review and not a negotiation. Jorge Molina Larrondo, you got to come back really soon because this is just becoming even more interesting as we move forward in 2026. Thank you so much for joining us.
Before we finish,
Oh,
just keep in mind that Prime Minister Carney said that by
right,
mid-January, Minister LeBlanc, who is the responsible for CUSMA for the USMCA
right.
in Canada, is going to start formal discussions with Ambassador Greer. So the point is,
Mhm.
okay, if Canada is doing that, what about Mexico?
Why aren't they meeting with Mexico at the same time? That's fascinating. That's fascinating. Thank you so much, Jorge Molina Larrondo. He is a trade and he's a trade policy and he's a trade and public policy consultant. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to go to a break. I'm Ana Maria Salazar,